So hello everyone and welcome all of you to Nikki Lyle Creative Presents of Industry Leaders, where today I'm joined by Stuart Gough, who's an associate partner at Pentagram. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you very much. No, thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. So yeah, my name's Stuart Gough. I'm an associate partner at Pentagram. Before that, I was actually a bit of a freelancer going around. I've worked at nearly 20 different studios now in and around London. But yeah, I've been at Pentagram now for 4.5 years. The majority of that has been with Marina Willer's team, but I did actually join with Jodie and Luke joining as partners. So I was their sort of first freelance senior designer with 2 interns. And then since then, they sort of passed me on to Dominic Lipper, Daniel Vile, Angus Highlands, and eventually Marina as well. So yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting journey to have the experience of going around Pentagram, experiencing all the different teams in London. But yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed about you actually, Stuart, is that you started off your career freelancing around a lot, actually, all different agencies. Was that something that you set out to do on purpose, or is it just something that naturally happened?
I'd love to say it was on purpose, but it wasn't. It was slightly forced hand, as it were. I was a graduate from Bath and moved to London to basically take an internship in Soho. My friend very, very, very kindly offered her bedroom floor for a few months, I think, actually. So I was sharing the floor with a kitten, basically. He kept scratching me in the middle of the night. But that stayed for a little bit of time. And there was potential promise to stay on, but it didn't happen. So I was sort of left in this weird limbo, and then tried to fathom out how to make it work. Because by that time I'd moved out, I'd started paying rent on a place. I was running out of funds, so ended up selling a lot of possessions, my car, which I absolutely loved at the time, and taking up shifts in bars as well in the local area. But I was quite lucky. A friend of mine referred me for another internship that was paid, so it meant that I didn't have to carry on with any of the bar jobs. But I just kept doing internship with an internship. But I realized that wasn't viable, and it was going to get to a point where people might see me as unemployable. That fear I had, that anxiety of, okay, why are people not hiring this person? Why are they just keeping on as an intern? That was an irrational fear from my side, but it was a bit of an anxiety thing. So the next place that I was sort of applying to or trying to reach out to, I just went, I'm a junior freelancer. Here's my day rate. And they went, sure, come on in. So I was really, really, really fortunate with that. I sort of plucked up the confidence to go forward and just ask for a position that was better paid than an internship. So, and then it speed rolled from there. I just kept getting either referred or applying for things or trying to do my own thing, being passed around and just trying to weigh up all of the scenarios of, well, how will this help? How will this position help me progress? If I want to go here, do I go here? And trying to see it in a very linear way of that. But it wasn't a conscious decision. I'd love to say, oh yeah, I was really shit hot talented and everyone wanted a piece of me, but it definitely wasn't that. It was a means to the end, and basically I needed funds, so I needed to just pluck up the courage to ask to be a freelancer.
Yeah, that's so common, and that's one of the things that every industry leader such as yourself has said, that in the beginning it is hard work, it's kind of hustling. It's like you finish your degree and you think, oh brilliant, that's over, I'm going to land a job, and it's like, no, hang on a minute guys, you're going to have to gather up some momentum now to get a job. And there will be sometimes it takes months, 6 months, 8 months, but I think as long as you manage people's expectations is what it's like to kind of get into the industry, and then people can get through it a bit better actually. And having someone such as yourself share your story and how that happened, and look at where you're at now as well, so that's good to see. At what point in your life did you decide that you wanted to become a graphic designer or a creative?
I don't think there was a moment in time where you go, oh yeah, I definitely want to be a designer. I mean, when I was at school doing design and technology, it was just natural for me, and I was just good. My teachers just said, oh yeah, well done. And it's like, okay, I'm putting in maybe a lot of effort, but it's becoming quite easy for me to do, especially in comparison to any other subject that I was doing. I was keen in art as well, I like photography. I was that little kid playing with little toy models in my spare time, and my mum walking in and smelling the place of this like poly cement, thinking I'm getting high on glue in the corner. I'm just making models all the time. But I lived, when I was a kid, in the Peak District. We were so close to Alton Towers, and I still remember it's like the real thing that excited me about going to Alton Towers was getting the free map. I realized that was a very bizarre thing in hindsight, of just seeing this illustration of this map to try and maneuver around this magical world as a kid was really appealing. And I think that's something that has really like stuck with me. I'm just still really fascinated when I see a map anywhere around, just seeing someone else's interpretation of doing something that is unanimous across the world, as it were.
Mm. Yeah. And so what's it like working in Marina Willer's team?
That's good. We're a colourful bunch, even though I dress in black pretty much all the time. Marina's Brazilian spirit definitely comes into the work that we do. Her attitude towards everything is really positive, which is such a really interesting thing to take from studio to studio, just hearing and having a very positive creative director. So yeah, there's at the moment we're a very small team. We've got Marina who's heading it. She's the partner. I'm an associate along with Hamlet. He's from Hong Kong. And then we've got Kleber and Marta. Kleber's Brazilian, Marta's Portuguese. Well, Portuguese British. So we're a mix in terms of the creative. We also have Kate, who's the only other officially British person, who's the project account manager in our team as well. But we do fluctuate with freelancers or interns as well. So the size grows and shrinks down, but that's pretty much the core team.
And would you say that it's the diversity of the team that enriches the creative work?
Oh, definitely. That mixed with the environment that we're in at Pentagram. I don't know how many people are aware of the setup of Pentagram, but our studio in London is in Notting Hill. And downstairs is pretty much meeting rooms. It's the front of house staff, it's the archive, it's the canteen. But upstairs is virtually, apart from the accounts at the front of the building, it's all open plan with every other team in London. So every desk is basically a different team. So you go from one desk to another desk. Everyone's seeing everyone's work. Everyone's seeing all the other screens. So that level of openness in our work, it's either on the screen or on the wall, if there is a wall to find. It feels like it is an educational institution, as it were. So there is no studio music being played because there's too many people to actually pick a song that everyone likes, and everyone's got so many different tastes, and that's why it's a good thing. We're trying to be as coming from lots of different backgrounds as possible. We still need to do more in terms of that, but what we are trying to do is make sure that we are aware of everything, everyone else's work, so that we can input where and needs be, I suppose. So if someone's walking past on the way to lunch and they see something on your screen and go, oh, have you seen this? It's really helpful in that term of being very open about your work.
Yeah. And would you say that you have a distinct design style, or do you like to keep it quite broad?
I think potentially Team Willer might have a design style. We do like positivity. Color is definitely a pinpoint of some of our work that we do. It's not everything. I wouldn't say that we always do one thing or something else. But me personally, it's more a case of making things relevant towards a strategy and making sure it's relevant, therefore, for the client. So in terms of his style, I would really love to say that it is completely controlled by the type of client that we're working with, and not by our own personal, I suppose, egos coming into it, as it were.
Yeah. And where do you go to for inspiration?
I mean, I would always go back to the client, in the sense of finding what it is about the client that really resonates well in terms of the creative output. what we're trying to do is always to sync with the strategy, and we are the ones sometimes doing the strategy as well. Luckily, the backgrounds that we've had, Marina was creative director before at Wolf Rowland before joining Pentagram. I was at Moving Brands, which is very strategy-led studio as well. So the mindset that we have in terms of the appreciation for strategy, and when I say strategy, it is trying to really discover who the client is, and then use that as a basis for all of the creative output that we're doing. So yeah, always going back to the client. I mean, you can always find something that's there that they are completely aware of, but then they're maybe not communicating it as prevalently as they should be. So that's something that we always go to. It's tricky though, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, go for a walk or read a book or some blogs or something like that. It's hard to push those and find inspiration from them. I mean, it's great to clear your head, have an empty mind so that you can really think about something. I mean, that could be a walk or ride a bike or just have a bit of headspace. I mean, usually it happens for me when I'm trying to go to sleep, my head won't turn off. So it's a time that I have a bit of quiet, so I'm thinking things through, but it means that I don't really actually get some sleep. But yeah, I mean, everything that's online, everything that's in the book, it's already been done. It's been published, as it were, and therefore you're trying to implement. If you see something, are you therefore implementing a style that you've seen on your client? I'd really like to say that we do it the other way around. So the client is who we're doing the work for, and therefore all the ideas should be coming from who they are anyway. We shouldn't be trying to project them on the outside world as something that they're not.
Yeah, that's so interesting actually, because I've asked that question a lot, and a lot of creators will say things like you just said, Stuart, I'll go for a walk, or there's a podcast series that I like to listen to, or I'll pick up some books and I'll start going through those. And the fact that you said you just focus on the client and really getting underneath the skin of them, who they're about, and pushing it from the client outwards rather than trying to bring external influence in and mold the client into potentially, as you say, who or what they're not. Okay, so which projects are you particularly proud of?
Oh, there's a few. I would say the work that we've done, especially for Battersea Dogs and Cats, Blood Cancer UK, that's just been sort of released just before this whole storm of God knows what has impacted us in the world. But they're all projects that we know that they're doing good in the world. That's what I feel really proud about. And it's not a case of the style or the substance, the aesthetics of what we're producing at the end. It's who we're doing it for. That becomes a real pinpoint of where I feel very proud for being able to work with these types of people. But no, they're great at what they do, and they do it for a really good cause, and they've got some amazingly talented people behind them as well. So just having the opportunity to be in the same room as these people is just fantastic. I mean, it's an opportunity that you don't really get with many other disciplines in the world, to have these dialogues and these communications with such a different array of different people.
Because you've designed a lot for the charity sector as well, and also like, was it Blood Cancer UK, etc. What's the difference like working with those kind of clients?
I suppose there's a theme with clients at the moment of not wanting to take risks, and with that, the risk of taking a decision is also prevalent in a lot of the work that we do. And I would say that that's more so a case with something like a charity. They're always helped with funders, and reassuring them that they are spending the money wisely and making sure that they are getting the most out of it. They have to answer to a lot of people, and a lot of people are watching them. And you're always going to get a headline from some shit newspaper like the Daily Mail, especially if it's going public, about critiquing the design and whether it was worth it, and especially if they find out the cost of what it talk, but then you think of all the legwork and how that has now helped them progress further and further to actually achieve and raise more and do more, get more awareness and help more. They don't see the balance of that, which is sometimes a big shame, but everyone loves a juicy headline. So yeah, it's tricky. They are harder, I would say, to work with because they need reassurance. So we just need to make sure that everything we're doing for them goes all the way back to the strategy, is true to who they are, that's something they can do, what they can deliver. I mean, I suppose the design specifics of that, and just making sure that it's whatever we're producing is capable for their team to take on, whether that's an in-house team or whether they farm that out to other studios, and making sure that they have the capabilities to make sure that that brand can exist further down the line than just the launch of when we're passing over all the final files.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing with charity branding is when people are looking at who they're going to donate to, they do look at the charity, and it is about the face of it as well. And that is quite important, like the backstories to, if you're going to donate to them, and getting that fine balance. But so you led the creative team for some like really exciting projects for the Design Museum. It was like their two biggest shows.
Yeah, we sort of, I joined Marina's team when they were sort of in the crux of doing the Ferrari Under the Skin show. Part of that was that we had to do a mini show in Maranello for Ferrari in their personal museum. So I think it was might have been my first week or weekend. Marina asked if I could fly out to Italy on a Sunday night and then meet with the directors out there on Monday morning for about 24 hours, and then come back to try and help them implement this show that the team had designed. So yeah, I was going out there. It was a bit of a bit of a shock to the system, getting the passionate verbal of, I suppose, how to put this politely, opinions of the Italians, as it were, straight in my face, which was an interesting baptism for fire. But no, it was really good, and it helped me establish a good relationship with the team out there, and then make sure that what we were producing out in London was going to be, it was a bit of a learning curve, I suppose. They wanted implementation out in Maranello and then bring it back to London. So I was with the project all the way through. So yeah, a project like that is all the spatial designs. We were working with an architect that the Design Museum chose, and we were also doing the marketing for that whole thing. It ended up being a lot of work, a hell of a lot of work, but it was a successful show. It was at the time their most successful show, and we were really, really happy with how it turned out in the end. Curators were very happy with it as well, and then it actually led on to getting asked if we would like to do the Stanley Kurbrick exhibition as well, which we were very fortunate to actually take that all the way through, from the marketing, the graphic design, and the spatial design. So we worked with Will Russell, who's one of the ex-partners of Pentagram, to assist us in the architectural drawings. But yeah, we sort of saw that one all the way through for everything. Again, another big feat of trying to comprehend all of the graphics that you need for a show like that when there's so many objects in there. I mean, just to put it in perspective, we had quite a few hundred objects, and each one of those objects needs information to give it context. But then we've got too many objects for the walls. So how do you group them together, and then how do you put captions with those when you've got no wall space left? But also all of the requirements from a costume that for insurance purposes, you need a 1 meter perimeter around it. So you're trying to think of good solutions that you can still have the kind of experience that is wanted or desired by the curators, and then put it into actual reality in terms of the design, the physical space as well. But there's so many other different considerations in it, from We tried to go from a real accessible sort of approach to it. So even the turning circles of wheelchairs, trying to get access to the cabinets to make sure that when you're approaching a case, that everything has got a slight tilt to it. It's illuminated in the right way. We're not getting glare from the lights above. So it's working with the lighting designers as well. And then making sure that everything in there is easy to read, distances, sight lines, everything. It's just a mammoth job, and it takes months and months. I mean, it can take about 12 months. I mean, 6 months probably full time on it. Especially the last 3 months are very much hands on. So you've got to know every single object. You've got to have meetings with curators constantly to just check in to say, right, what's going in, what's going out. You've got an object list with all of these different requirements, as I mentioned before with the insurance. You need to know how they need to be mounted, what's the requirements of that as well. There's so much with it. It's just, I could probably speak for hours and hours. I mean, a meeting with the curators, for example, it was myself, Will, the architect, and one of the curators. We sat down for a 4-hour meeting, and we didn't even get through half of the objects. So, and it's just a very time-absorbing sort of process that you have to go through. So, but it's really good fun. I really love it. I say to people, it's a bit like Alice in Wonderland. You're walking into a book that you've created, and those decisions are always determined and thought around how best you can communicate a narrative going through the space. So what we did actually on the whole spatial thing as Stanley Kubrick, we had the whole premise of going behind the screen. So the entrance was this idea of the one-point perspective that Stanley Kubrick was, I suppose, one of the things that he was well known for was this one-point perspective. It's very straight on, but then there's a slow move forward in the camera. So we created a custom cut of all of his films, put them together on this tunneled screen as you enter into the exhibition, and you've got to physically go behind the screen to enter the exhibition. Then from there, it was everything behind the scenes. So it was the cameras, technology, all of the back of house. It was like so interesting just discovering about all of these things. He didn't even do a film, but it was all going to be based on Napoleon, which and it was back in the day when you didn't have things like Wikipedia. So what he had was all these little cards, paper cards, that he actually managed to find out the life of Napoleon and documented every single day of Napoleon's life on one of these cards of where he was, what he was doing. And it's just filled up with these cases and these cabinets of cards that he could reference to create a narrative. He had the drawings there as well. He teamed up with some iconic designers, Sol Bass for one. So all of these amazing things, these triumphs of all of these different people coming together, it was just incredible. It's like the idea of it was the Steadicam that was so brought forward for things like on The Shining. That was a revelation. I mean, we can buy it now, and all the influencers are out there now using their own version of it. But he was one of the first people to use it in a feature film. It's so much so that you can see it in the Shining Maze when they're going through, and that idea of disorientation as well. But that was something that we tried to actually reflect in the show. So the physical path that we went through, we gave it a very linear route. We wanted a very open thing. There was different variations of the spatial idea that we wanted, but this sort of snaking idea as you go through the show was the whole idea behind that, was turning a corner and being surprised by the next thing that you see, but also to turn you around in so many different directions that you don't know which way you are. So if you don't know which way you are, you're in this idea of this maze, so therefore you can concentrate on what it is in front of you. So yeah, the feedback we got was really positive from the museum. Loads of people were spending probably a bit too much time in there because there were so many objects, but that's not a bad bit of feedback. But yeah, that ended up being their now most successful show. So very proud to work on it. Very, very proud. It was just one of those icons that you just can't ever say no to an opportunity like that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just absolutely gutted that I missed that exhibition because I really wanted to go to it. And now you've explained it to me, I'm like, damn it, I wish I'd gone. But I work with loads of agencies that cover like experiential branding and spatial, and I just love looking through those like portfolios. And as you say, it's you're inviting in someone into a space and an environment, and especially someone like Stanley Kubrick and his whole style and aesthetic, and being able to, I can imagine that being a really fun project to work on.
Yeah.
Have you made any creative mistakes? I mean, most people have, hey, but what's some that really stand out to you that were like big mistakes?
A comical mistake that was a big mistake. It was actually Stanley Kubrick. We were giving a presentation in front of the curators, one of which is the then director, co-director of the Design Museum, Dayan Sadiq, and we're all there, the whole committee basically. The conference room was squeezing at the brim. I was just presenting the work and going through, and each section was sort of, one section is sort of this accumulation of some of the ideas on war. So you've got Path of Glory, you've got Spartacus, you've got Full Metal Jacket, and then it goes around to things like Lolita and Clockwork Orange that were very controversial. And then it ended up going to the next one, which was Eyes Wide Shut. And I was just going to this one, and then it's every single one on the presentation was like big titles saying what the thing was, and then going into the aspects of it. So what would the colors be? What would the imagery be? How would we arrange all of the walls? What would the space feel like? And the big title page there, it said Eyes Wide Shit. And I just had that in front of everyone, and I was just like, what? So yeah, it's sort of, luckily it sort of gave a very human side of everyone. Everyone laughed and took the Michael out of me. So it was fine. It was a revelation for people to go, yeah, everyone's still a bit human, and we're here to do the design, not do the copywriting or the proofreading. So
So what, did someone do that on purpose, or was it just a mistake? Or
no, that was my mistake. I mean, it was
just written it by accident.
I just completely.
I thought it was a joke or something.
No. Fraudulent slip. It was like typing out Eyes Wide Shit rather than Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, yeah, you can't really get too much worse. I mean, I've got a number of Dan's books on my bookcase, and I'm just thinking, it's like, I can't believe of all the people, it's like one person you probably shouldn't be doing something like that in front of. But no, it didn't tarnish any relationship. I mean, it just showed a bit more of the human side. So I took full credit for the mistake. Didn't blame it on anyone else.
Do you know, one of the main things I've realised because I love asking this question in the series, and it's always typos. Like, somebody was working on like a festival and they'd printed Sugar Babes t-shirts, but they didn't realise that you didn't spell Sugar Babes, you know, like you took out the R, and so they'd printed like thousands upon thousands of Sugar Babes typo t-shirts.
Yeah,
that's not always where designers are caught out, is there above anything else.
Yeah, it's the one time where being a freelancer and doing your own clients, you realize, oh yes, this is why you get insurance. So definitely, especially when you've got something like a book run. I mean, if you're a freelancer and doing a book run, I would definitely get insurance, especially if you're overlooking the print. So you
wouldn't want Eyes Wide Shit, would you? Printed on the
luckily it was a digital presentation and nothing more. So yeah, lucky in that sense.
So what advice would you give to any juniors that might be watching this about like getting into the industry? I know that for you personally, there's lots of like freelancing and things like that to start with. Is there any, and also times are a bit different at the moment, so I don't know if you give specific advice that applies to the here and now with the pandemic.
Yeah, full sympathy for anyone graduating this year. I mean, it's a horrible time. But I just want to make sure that they're not like left. They don't feel like they're isolated or left alone. It's like everyone is going through this and trying to figure it out the time being. But what I would say is, like, what I've seen even before lockdown was I suppose the ones that we really stand out for us are those that are enthusiastic about what it is that they're doing. I can, yeah, you probably need a good portfolio to get through the door of Pentagram to have an interview. I would say, yes, you need that because I'm the one that lets you through the door usually. um, but you're already through the door. We already know that you've got potential in your skill set. So it's more a case of your communication, your attitudes, how enthusiastic are you about it? Because that enthusiasm can roll into teaching you skills that you might not have at the time being. That enthusiasm can roll into lots of other things as well. It's just being aware of the situation that you're in. But yeah, it's not an easy time. There's no denying it, but everyone's sort of pulling through at the time being. In terms of, yeah, junior at this time, it's not easy, but I mean, people are offering at the time being. They're still being aware. It's good to just try and reach out. There's no harm in reaching out and just finding out who it is that you're reaching out about. I mean, Pentagram's a bit of an anomaly. There's not many graphic design studios that really play in the way or have the same business as Pentagram. So if you're approaching anyone there, it's good to figure out who you're approaching. Pentagram is a beast and it's full of amazing designers, and they are the partners. The partners look after their team, their finances, and they are responsible for making sure the work going out the door is to the right standard. So if you are approaching anyone there, just make sure you're matching up with the right team. Yeah, there's so many. It's like just emailing Pentagram is just very broad because you're then going, okay, I want an opportunity here because I like it. Great. But who are you? What are you? Are you approaching the right person? We've got Yuri Suzuki who's a sound designer, a sort of engineer in that sense. Daniel Vile, product designer, same with John Marshall. But then you've also got people like John Rushworth, who are doing a lot of really interesting luxury brands, or Naresh, who's doing lots of narrative, copywriting and communications in that sense. So everyone is different there. That's how they are a partner. They bring something new to the table. So it's just making sure that who you are speaking to or reaching out to is the right person. And just being aware, I suppose the partners might not always have the right time, but within that team, the associates there, the designers, the seniors, they're going to have a bit more time. They also appreciate that, or remember, I suppose, the position that those graduates are going to be in now is like, I remember far too well, it's like the hard times that it was. And sometimes it's just disheartening to get a no, but it's also harder to not hear anything. You're left in limbo, ended up at home refreshing the email all the time, which is just a horrible thing. You just want a bit of an answer. So yeah, don't take it to heart, I would say. Sometimes it just doesn't align. It's like if a project's either just falling through or they've just taken on a new hire or something like that, they won't be looking to get someone at that time. Doesn't matter how good your portfolio is, but try not to get disheartened. Remember that it's still a relationship and you can build on that and go back to them further down the line.
And that's such an important thing that you said there about doing your research. Like I interviewed Charlotte and Danny and spoke all about Young Creative Council. So any juniors that are watching this, you need to go on that website. There are people giving book crits. And there's one recently with all the team from Mother, well, not all the team obviously, but a few people put their time aside and they're just helping with portfolio. So there's loads of help out there for you. And so that's a good starting point. And also researching what part of, say, like Pentagram you want to work for, because if you receive an email, Stuart, and I'm sure someone says, I love this project you've worked on, that one, I've done this and that, and they're showing why they're applying to you specifically rather than just emailing info@Pentagram saying, hey, can I have an internship? Unfortunately, that's not really going to get picked up as much, I believe. And that's why the advice I keep giving juniors at the moment is just be very specific.
Yeah.
Who you're applying to. And also every industry leader has said, we will hire for the right attitude, like going on to what you said, like positivity, what you can bring, people that are interested in stuff, interesting people. When you're hiring, you want that energy in your team, actually. So just like attitude, and then knowing that skills are something that can be trained on the job.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing time and time again.
I mean, in our team, we share the same values, but we don't always share the same sort of social circles, as it were. So it just means that we've all come from different backgrounds, which we completely revel in. It's great to have that level of, or have at least a bit more of level of diversity in the team. Yes, we all need to get on very well and communicate in a very good way, especially in times like we are now. But sharing those shared values, it's like that is key. It's like we work for non-profits, charity. We go on the marches. We try and have a bit more of a voice and have an opinion, I suppose, a bit more than some of the other teams. But that's who we are. It's like Enriches' team has got a side charity or side awareness project, I suppose, called Do the Green Thing. His whole team is sort of either putting on exhibitions or doing articles. It's a bit more of his side hustle, but it's a thing that they value. That's their team. That's who they are. So everyone's different. Everyone's got their thing. So, but what we have as commonplace in the team is the shared value that we have.
And are you taking on interns at Pentagram at the moment?
Not too sure, because we've got a big project sort of slowly coming to an end, which we've had support from actually, we had quite a few interns during I suppose last year, and we actually kept them on during their third year as part-time freelancers. So we really liked them and their work, and we wanted to support them because they were working so much, and they were working either at the British Museum while doing the studies and then trying to do an internship, and we were just like, okay, why don't you calm down a little bit? We'll give you a bit more of a freelance, so you're getting a bit more support, so you don't have to do all the other stuff, and you can also stick with your studies as well, rather than trying to juggle 3 responsibilities all at the same time. So yeah, we're at the situation now, we're sort of seeing where this happens with this project, but interns we are usually taking on. We do take for usually quite a long time. It depends who we get in, where they're from, what their availability is like as well, in terms of that opportunity. But we're always keen to see and hear from new people. So but yeah, we try and arrange it slightly differently for our team. We call our interns anyone who's still studying. Anyone who has graduated, we call a graduate. So they offer different things, I suppose. A graduate, we would say, is probably more like a freelancer rather than an intern. So that's something that we personally, just as our team, offer. It's what we're sort of trying to get rid of. I completely condone in terms of working for free as an intern. It's not right. It's not morally right. Been in those situations before. It doesn't help anyone. So that's something that we're trying to really push out in terms of leading the way of acknowledging when people are still studying. Therefore, okay, you have this balance between your study work and something else, or you might have had a year out. I know LCC, we've had a few from LCC who have their sandwich year, so 2 years study and then they do a year in industry and then go back to their third year. So sometimes that's helpful for if people want a longer internship with us. But anyone after they've graduated, we take them on as a graduate, as it were.
Well, this is it. It's good to be able to obviously pay anyone that's producing any form of work for you, because otherwise they're doing their studies, they're working at Pentagram, they're having to get another job either in a coffee shop or retail, or and then they're just exhausted, and that's not going to bring out the best kind of creativity or productivity from somebody.
Yeah. It's also, I would say, trying to step them back. We do have people coming in and saying, well, I'll work for free, I don't mind, I just want the opportunity. It's like, well, okay, that's great for you, and it's a bit like a bait hook for us, but I will still say no, because just because you're in the right, or you have the privilege, I suppose, to be able to do that, other people aren't in that same situation. So if I give it to you, then I'm turning down someone who physically can't do that because of financial issues or housing issues or something like that. So I'm therefore offering an opportunity to you because you're in a better situation. I don't find that fair, so I always turn them down, or try to turn them down whenever someone tries to do that. So I do explain as well, but yeah, we still sometimes get that.
Yeah. And so how's Pentagram been affected at the moment by COVID?
I think I haven't caught up with too many other people at other studios. I spoke to a few, but we have, I mean, there's no denying everyone's been affected in the whole industry. Pentagram in general, for our team, projects have either paused, potential clients have not happened, or things have just slowed down basically. But saying that, we've also pitched for new work as well. So it's this weird scenario that everyone's aware, but then also I think we're in the repercussions or the wake of what the clients decide to do. And I think now, hopefully, the clients are now entering this thing of, okay, we can't just sit back and wait for this thing to pass because it won't. So therefore, we have to go ahead. So things are slowly picking up. There's potentially new things happening now, which is good. And we have been lucky because of this sort of beast of a project that we've been working with. We've been continuing working with them. Things have been delayed a lot, but there is that continuation with them. But it has affected everyone. And I think it's affected everyone in this very similar sort of way. All I can say is that we're extremely fortunate to probably not have the repercussions that maybe a few other studios have had. So yeah, luckily on our team, we've not had to furlough anyone or anything like that. Very fortunately that it was coming to a point where the freelancers were coming to the end of their contracts, and we had someone even before lockdown or anything like that, they were going to part ways. We were going to replace or do a new hire, but we ended up just pausing on that anyway. So we haven't sort of turned anyone down yet, and we haven't let anyone go yet in terms of our team. So I'm feeling very lucky for that, and that's mainly through the support of all the partners. We're an independently owned studio, so they are the ones making the decisions of what's happening, and they've been really supportive in terms of helping the studio and everyone at the studio.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear, because it's not all complete doom and gloom out there actually, and it's nice to speak to people such as yourself where I've heard loads of stories where companies haven't had to furlough all their staff, but some people are as well. But how do you think consumers' mindsets are going to be changed? So obviously the pause button's been pressed and we've all had a chance to assess our lives and our situations, etc. Do you think that going forwards, after we're out of lockdown, that's had a real effect on people?
I think it's going to have a knock-on effect to a lot of different things. In terms of a consumer market, I don't know. Unfortunately, we're now in this consumer-central society, which I'm not a massive fan about. It has repercussions in so many different ways, but this idea of absorbing information or having things on demand loses a lot of appreciation further down the line. Speed therefore cuts out a lot of other things that I would rather have those other things than have the convenience of speed sometimes. It has a trickle effect, which I'm not a fan of. But I think the potential positive that might come out of this is the awareness of how the human beings of this planet are destroying it. So the idea of, okay, let's get rid of all these lanes for the pollutants in terms of the cars and try and focus more on actual sustainable modes of transport. I would love to turn every street here into a cycle path. It would be absolutely incredible, but unfortunately, I mean, even a global pandemic it feels like it's still a resistant thing, even though we're in a climate emergency and we still need to do something about it. So I don't want to be all doom and gloom about it, but yeah, I think there's still a need for change. I mean, my background is growing up in the Peak District, which is one of the oldest national parks. I wasn't definitely not a farmer, but surrounded by lots of good farmers, and the idea of knowing where things come from hit me very early on in my life. So that has already that has always been prevalent in my life. So you pass it on to not just food or anything like that, but anything that any of these consumer things of, okay, well, where does everything come from? If you question that and you go further down the path, it's like, well, okay, you're buying something for dirt cheap. How on earth do you think anyone is actually making? Why is this good on any level? This material is cheap material. It doesn't last. It's not of an era that we've now transitioned from. It's like, ugh. It's just, I don't know. I just have a big bugbear with it. It's like, that's probably why we've got a second-hand dining table that's from the 60s, 70s, whereas things were built to last a bit better. It was the idea of craft and having longevity in some of the goods that you own. Therefore, it's an heirloom or something you pass on from generation to generation, rather than, oh, this is a cheap high street fashion that will last so long, I'll stick it in the wash, it'll shrivel up, and I'll throw it in the bin. It's like that for me is not sustainable. It's not helping. It's just causing issues.
You know, I'm so with you on that, Stuart. I could literally sit here and speak to you about that for hours, but I'm aware we're running out of time, and we've got the Q&A section to get to. But again, I just want to say thank you so much for answering those questions. So let's dive into the Q&A bit. Okay, so someone said 20 different agencies. Wow, having worked with so many agencies apart from Pentagram, which agencies did you enjoy working with the most and why?
Do I name names? The one thing that I found with working in so many different studios is that you realize very quickly that there are so many variables for everything that impacts your day to day. That can be the physical environment that you're working in, whether for me, I like daylight. It's just one thing that I have is I suffer from the winter time coming around. It's just an absolute nightmare. So it can be a physical thing, or it can be your peers. Who are you working with? The projects that you're working on. Who are you working for? Do you respect them? Do you get on with them? It's like, do we not get on, but what we produce is incredible, and therefore I respect their decisions. And it turns it into this weird learning curve. But there is so many different variables. So there is the benefits of larger studios, that you can have all these different departments that you can rely on. You're working with some of the best people for that specific thing. You can turn to them and learn from them and gain that experience, and then utilize that further down. It's like adding badges on a scout sash or something. You're just absorbing all of this, which is incredible. But then the benefits of a smaller studio is that you've got to do it all. You've got to step up. You've got to answer the phone. You've got to reach out to the client. You've got to go on press and oversee something that's going to be going out. It's your responsibility. So again, your learning curve and your responsibility goes up and out through the roof. But the studios that I've probably enjoyed the most, I would say, are those potentially smaller. I know Pentagram's big, but our team is small, and it's in that same sort of dynamic where it's, for me personally, I like being able to have a voice for everyone on the team to have the confidence to voice their opinion, but then also making sure that we're all concentrated and filtering through to make sure that we are doing the best that it can be. So that I've found is sometimes a hard thing to always achieve in different studio environments. But there's definitely studios out there that I would run back to further down the line. I mean, I say further down the line, I go out and have drinks with them because they've turned into friends rather than just work colleagues. So yeah.
Smaller agencies are really good places to learn actually and develop and grow, because in the bigger agencies, how they normally work is you get all the positions are carved up and you'll get put on like one small part of one big huge account, and then you'll just be churning that out. But I found that people that have worked at more the smaller boutique type of agencies seems to have really strong folios, depending on obviously the agency themselves and who's leading the creative. But So this is a question for both of us. So what does it take to have a great portfolio? Is it better to showcase more strategic thinking and process, or just bold visuals? What do you think?
Well, depends what you mean by bold visuals, but I would say um, I'm not too fussed about seeing the final thing comped up on a billboard or something like that. That for me is okay. You're now entering this world where you're trying to replicate a studio, so I'm always just therefore going to do a comparison, and then all I am looking at is, well, is your mock-up good? Not the thought behind it. So I like to know behind the scenes. I like to know the process. I also want to know what they did. I've seen many times portfolios before that I know the studio, I know the project, I know there's a big team, but then, okay, well, what was your position in it? I know there was 10 people working on this project, and that's before we've even met. I've just seen your portfolio. Um, so yeah, having the idea or the knowledge or the understanding, clarity of their position, what they contributed to is always really helpful. Going back to what we were saying before in terms of understanding people's values, what they care about. Doesn't have to be shown through a side hustle, but it can be brought in words and just say, I'm also doing this, or I've just been to this, or I've seen that. It's just being aware that you are acknowledging what is out there. But yeah, it's like just making sure that if there was strategy involved, seeing their take on that strategy is very helpful because you can understand the logic of how they got to that final solution. If you just see a bold visual at the end, I'm just judging it for an aesthetical purpose. I'm not judging you in terms of your process of getting there. And that's the majority of the work that we do, is that process, that distilling, that understanding of what the client wants. And you're just giving me the last thing. So therefore, fine, I'll look at it, but it will just be pretty pictures in terms of, was it the right decision? What was the client like? Why this? So,
I've got loads of videos on this on YouTube, by the way, if anyone's interested. I've asked people specifically for loads of advice on portfolios, on CVs, how you put them together and things. And yeah, you're so right. You want to see who's the individual, what have they done, what's their process. Some clients are more creative than others. What ideas did you come up with? And your involvement, because what happens a lot, say if you're a junior on one project and then you're flying some work around that's almost saying that you were responsible for the entire thing, or you're not being specific about your involvement, and that person might be like, hang on a minute, I was the creative lead on that, they worked on this part, but they're almost portraying that they covered the whole thing. So like Stuart said, be specific about what you did, what you contributed on that project. And also it's good to like go on the dots, because you can tag yourself in projects that are already online as well, and what you put towards that. So any advice for middleweight seniors, in particular someone who's recently gone freelance, the best way to approach a studio such as Pentagram to work with them? What do you like to see in someone's experience and in their portfolio?
I think what we said before in terms of making sure that you're targeting, it sounds like you're honing in a missile. You're directing your conversation to the right person, the right team. Is the team that you're selecting the right team for you? It's like, are you interested in that world, or that idea of the clients that they're working for? Does it reflect in who you are, your values, and things like that? For midweight seniors, it's a different angle, because I suppose you are showing much more than a graduate in terms of your skill set. So therefore, okay, technical abilities. Would we be bringing you in terms of a freelance? We'd be bringing you in specifically for one part of a project. The benefit of being at Pentagram is that we do branding. Branding is everything and anything. So if you had a very strong portfolio and you're doing editorial design, great. That's going to be relevant for us when we need someone with a strong editorial design background. When it's more general in terms of brand, it's like, done this, I've done that. Yes, maybe, but when would it be? Would we be expanding the team? Potentially, would we also replacing someone because we might have lost someone? But we haven't had a new full-time hire in 2-3 years on the creative team. So those positions are quite rare, as it were. And even if we were going to take someone on that basis, might most likely know them, or at least trial them for a long period of time beforehand as well. So it might be a case of, okay, we've got a freelancer that we brought in before, we've got a good relationship, we know that we can work together, they get us, we get them, we know what they can bring, and that would be more a case of more of a permanent thing. But in case of, going back to the question of being the right freelancer, if you're passionate about one thing, great, we'll save you for a project that we know that we need the support at that time. But if it's a general thing, then again, great. If we need extra support because we have got too much going on, again, we can bring you in at a certain time. But it's just being very clear of who you are, what you've done, your process for that, how you have responded to the briefs. And that might have been not a client brief, but it might have been the studio brief as well. Especially with freelancing around, you might have just been at the studio. I mean, my shortest thing was, I think it was 4 hours at IDO. I just got brought in. I could only do half a day, and they wanted some help on the keynote. I mean, it's me just helping out on the keynote, and it was a bit of a freelance gig, but it's literally my shortest one. The longest freelance would probably be moving brands that just rolled on and on and on. Mixing up with different projects, different opportunities, that ended up being about 14 months or so. But initially it was a few weeks, and then it extended and it extended and extended. So I suppose, going back, where do you want to work? What do you like? And then if you haven't got there yet, then what are the steps to get there? Are they doing stuff that is reflective of you? Therefore, do you need to do more stuff that is going to be more along what they are doing, so they can actually take you on as an asset, as a freelance asset, so that they can easily slot you in and out?
And I always say, like, do your research as well, because it's 50% about you, 50% about the agency. And like you said, Stuart, is it going to be a particular skill set your team don't have, but that person's like an expert in? Like, a friend of mine's a lettering artist, and say like Mother will reach out to her, or other agencies on working like the Triumph logo or the Pims logo, because she's brilliant at it, and so they'll bring her in specifically for that work. So following on from that question, how should a freelance portfolio differ from those like permanent ones? Would you say that they do differ?
I wouldn't say there's much difference between them. I've never really noticed and gone, oh yeah, this is definitely a freelance portfolio. I've just seen this as more in a skill set level of, okay, this person has worked on this, maybe they led the team on that. And I've known freelancers to lead teams as well for a specific project. So I've never really seen much of a differentiation between a freelance and a permanent portfolio.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's pretty, it's better just to keep them the same. There's not really any difference. It's more about just showing your work and what you can do. One last quick question, if you've got time.
Yeah, we can try and whiz through.
Right,
I know
one quick one.
I keep seeing red dots, so yeah, maybe we can whiz through quickly.
What brand would you like to rebrand, and why?
Oh God!
I know, right? Sorry, like for your last question, it's not even an easy one.
Yeah, I don't know, because we started working with clients that I've never heard of before, and they're some of the best. So I always like getting surprised. I mean, most people will probably say a museum of some kind, or something that's going to have longevity maybe, or be influential. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'm a very societal based designer. I like having an impact for the people who need it. I didn't know much about Battersea. I didn't know much about Blood Cancer UK before working on them, but then diving into it and then having that appreciation for them, that's where it sort of grows, and you feel a sense of purpose behind the work that you're doing. So yeah, cop out answer, sorry. It's not really, I don't really have a dream one at the time being. I mean, there's dream things that you probably want to, oh yeah, I want to put something on the side of a, I don't know, whatever, and then see it and just revel in that sort of weird egotistic sort of, oh yeah, that was mine, and then feel, I don't know, that's happened before, and I've seen it and I've gone, oh, I'm really embarrassed, and then move on, don't want to talk about it, sort of thing.
Right, so I'll stop that there, but thank you again so much for your time, Stuart, for joining us, and thank you for everyone that joined in. I hope you enjoyed this Industry Leaders session this morning, and take care.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye-bye.